In 1945, a man got hit by an atomic bomb. He survived, crawled out of the rubble, dusted himself off, and took a train to work the next day, where he got hit by a second atomic bomb and lived to be 93. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, and this man had the kind of plot armor that would get rejected from an anime for being too unrealistic, because the universe looked at this guy and said, "I'm going to throw everything I have at you." And he looked back and said, "I have work in the morning." So here's the thing. Yamaguchi wasn't a soldier. He wasn't some hardened military guy with maxed out stats and a tragic backstory. He was an engineer, a ship designer. He worked for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, designing oil tankers. This man's character build was literally office worker with a drafting pencil. Just a regular 29-year-old dude with a wife and a baby at home in Nagasaki, who had been sent to Hiroshima on a 3-month business trip. And August 6th, 1945? That was supposed to be his last day. He was literally about to go home. Bags packed, work done, train to catch. Main quest complete, right? Wrong. But on his way to the station that morning, he realized he'd forgotten his hanko. That's a personal stamp. In Japan, you need it for basically everything. It's like forgetting your ID, except the entire country runs on these little stamps. So he turned around to go get it. And that detour, that one side quest moment of, "Oh no, I forgot my stamp," put him 3 kilometers from ground zero when the sky turned white. That's it. Japanese bureaucracy almost killed him. The paperwork literally tried to take him out, minus 10,000 aura for that stamp. August 6th, 8:15 in the morning, Yamaguchi is walking toward the Mitsubishi shipyard when he spots a B-29 bomber above the city. 2 small parachutes floating down from it. Now, here's where his training kicks in. He had naval air raid training from his work, so when he sees those parachutes, some part of his brain goes, "That's not good." He dives to the ground, rolls into a drainage ditch, covers his eyes, and jams his thumbs into his ears. This man's reaction time was genuinely cracked, and then the entire world ends. Little boy detonates above Hiroshima, 15 kilotons, 80,000 people dead almost instantly. The shockwave rips Yamaguchi out of the ditch, launches him into the air like a rag doll in a physics engine, and throws him into a potato field. A woman who had been walking next to him moments earlier just ceased to exist, vaporized, despawned from reality. He described the flash as the lightning of a huge magnesium flare. He said when he opened his eyes, everything was dark. He thought he was dead. Then the darkness cleared, and he saw the mushroom cloud rising above the city. He said it looked like a kaleidoscope, prismatic light, shifting in patterns he'd never seen before, which is a genuinely beautiful way to describe the worst thing that's ever happened to you. His eardrums were ruptured. He was temporarily blind. The entire left side of his body was covered in burns. His skin had turned black from the thermal radiation. And he crawled to an air raid shelter, found his 2 co-workers, who had also somehow survived, and spent the night there. Now, at this point, a normal person would stay in the shelter, maybe wait for help, maybe process. The fact that they just survived the most destructive weapon in human history, this man's brain said, respawn accepted, and he decided to go to work in Nagasaki the next day. On August 7th, Yamaguchi and his 2 colleagues start making their way to the train station, and the journey there is genuinely one of the most horrific things I've ever read about. They walked through a city that no longer existed, buildings still on fire, bodies everywhere. At one river crossing, Yamaguchi had to swim through a layer of floating corpses to reach the other side. Let that just exist in your mind for a second. This is not a cutscene. This actually happened. He then boarded a train full of burned, confused, dying passengers, for an overnight ride from Hiroshima to Nagasaki. Hundreds of people made this same journey, took that same train from one ground zero to the next. Most of them would be dead within 48 hours, the worst fast travel in human history, and it wasn't even close. Yamaguchi arrives in Nagasaki. He's burned, bandaged, half deaf, running a fever. He goes to the hospital first. His doctor, a former classmate, doesn't recognize him. His face is so swollen and blackened that a guy he grew up with looked at him and went, "Who are you?" That's negative 500 aura right there. He goes home. His own mother thinks he's a ghost. She genuinely did not believe the figure standing at her door was her son. His character model was that different. But does he rest? Does he take a day? Does he even sit down for more than 5 minutes? No, because it's August 9th and it's a work day. And this man, wrapped in bandages, barely able to stand, having survived a nuclear weapon 72 hours ago, drags himself out of bed and goes to the Mitsubishi office. NPC behavior at its absolute peak. This is the most aggressively Japanese work ethic in recorded history. The man got nuked and his first thought was, I still have a shift tomorrow. And this is where the story hits its final boss moment. Yamaguchi is in a meeting at the Nagasaki office. He's trying to explain to his boss what happened in Hiroshima. One bomb. One single bomb destroyed an entire city. His boss looks at him, this bandaged, burned, clearly traumatized man, and says, "You're an engineer. Calculate it. How can one bomb destroy a whole city?" He called him crazy. His boss, in the middle of one of the most important first-hand accounts in military history, looked at the man who literally survived a nuke and said, "Nah, I don't think so." The disrespect, the absolute audacity of this NPC. And right then, right in that exact moment, while this man's boss is mid-sentence telling him that nuclear weapons aren't real, 11:02 a.m., Fat Man detonates over Nagasaki, 21 kilotons, 40% more powerful than Hiroshima. The room goes white. The universe heard his boss talking and said, "Let me fact-check that for you." This is the greatest dramatic timing in all of human history. No writer could have scripted this. If you put this in a movie, people would say it was too unrealistic. Yamaguchi later said, "I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima. Same distance, 3 kilometers from ground zero. Again." The universe was not subtle about making its point. This man was locked in a difficulty setting that didn't even have a name. His bandages got blown off by the shockwave, but he survived. Again. His co-workers survived too, partially because they'd just spent the last 10 minutes listening to his account of Hiroshima. So, when the flash hit, they actually knew to duck. His warning, the one his boss called crazy, saved their lives. This man's lore is genuinely insane. And his wife and baby son, they survived because his wife had been out of the house looking for burn ointment to treat his Hiroshima injuries. If he hadn't been burned in the first bombing, she would have been home, and she probably would have died. His injuries from the first bomb saved his family from the second bomb. The universe has the most twisted sense of humor imaginable. His Hiroshima debuff literally became a passive ability that saved his entire family. After the war, Yamaguchi suffered severe radiation sickness, hair loss, gangrenous wounds. His daughter later said that until she was 12 years old, her father was constantly wrapped in bandages. She grew up thinking that's just what dads looked like. He went back to work at Mitsubishi. He designed more ships. He raised 3 kids. And for decades, he said nothing. He refused to talk about what happened. He carried it silently for almost 60 years. Zero content, no interviews, no book deal. Just locked in and moved on with his life. Then his son, Katsutoshi, died of cancer in 2005, age 59. And something in Yamaguchi shifted. He decided the silence had to end. At 89 years old, this man unlocked his final arc. He started speaking publicly. He wrote a memoir. He published a book of poetry called "And the River Flowed as a Raft of Corpses." He traveled to New York and spoke at the United Nations about nuclear disarmament. He said, "The reason I hate the atomic bomb is because of what it does to the dignity of human beings." He also said, "The only people who should be allowed to govern countries with nuclear weapons are mothers who are still breastfeeding their babies," which is genuinely one of the hardest lines ever spoken by a human being, plus infinity aura. That line alone could end wars. In 2009, 64 years after the bombings, Japan finally, officially recognized him as a survivor of both. He was 93 years old. He had 1 year left. He died on January 4th, 2010. Stomach cancer. Not radiation, just regular cancer. After surviving 2 nuclear weapons, his body said, "You know what? Let's go with stomach cancer. The universe has a sense of humor, and it's deeply dry. 165 people survived both bombings, but Yamaguchi is the only one Japan ever officially recognized. And his story isn't just about survival, it's about the fact that the most unbelievable events in history happened to a guy who just wanted to go home, forgot his stamp, and ended up speedrunning the two most destructive moments in human civilization. Twice.